Well, good morning. Here we are in Bramhope, and today starts the beginning of what's going to be a multi-day job. We're going to be restoring this extensive multi-level deck. I'm Paul Driver and I'm the owner of JetReady. We're known for exterior cleaning and restoration services, especially decking restoration. It's a very solid deck, contemporary in style, but it is starting to show its age now. A lot of the finish is starting to peel and some rot has crept in here and there, so some minor repairs are going to be needed too. So stick around for the next few minutes and I'll take you through all the steps for restoring this tired old construction and transforming it into this amazing outdoor living space. So before I get started, let's just have a look around to assess the current condition. I'll then talk you through the steps I'm going to take to restore this to a tip-top condition, solid, sound, good for many years to come. So if we look closely at the existing timbers, we can see that in parts they're a little bit spongy, so some rot started to creep in. The homeowner's already had some repairs done to a very good standard, but they ran out of timber. It's an unusual size, it's not your run-of-the-mill softwood. Here we can see it's quite soft and spongy, and I can actually pick pieces of timber away quite easily. And in other areas we can see that the previously applied finish is peeling quite badly. Lots more peeling up here. Also lots of peeling on these groove steps. More damaged timber down here. I can just press my fingers right into it. And again here. More generally, it's just looking tired and dull, and in no way does it do justice to these beautiful surroundings. In the past, this has been dutifully maintained by the homeowner. They've been in the habit of applying Ronseal decking oil each year, and over the years this has been built up layer upon layer upon layer, and it becomes quite brittle. You then get expansion and contraction in the wood caused by temperature, and that's when the finish starts to break down. It just cracks. So what's going to be the plan? Well, it's going to be a 5-step process. Number 1, I'm going to do a light pressure wash over the entire surface. It's my hope that that will lift and remove a lot of the pre-existing finish. Secondly, I'm going to apply a biocide to the timber, and that will kill off any organic problems that are alive and resident in the wood. Thirdly, I'm going to need to assess what's needed for repairs, and I'm going to need to make a special effort to source the timber. It's a non-standard size. Number 4, I'm going to sand the entire surface, including all of the railings and the balustrades. Get rid of any trace of the previous finish and get it down to the wood. This will open up the grain, key the wood for the 5th stage, which will be applying a high quality decking oil. That'll waterproof the surface, protect the timber, and really make it pop. So there's a lot to do. Let's get started. Well, that's got all the pressure washing finished off. It's a shame it wasn't as effective as I would have hoped at lifting the old finish. Yes, it's come away in patches, but largely it's still intact. So that's going to mean quite a bit of effort with the sanding process, which is going to be coming next. That effort hasn't been wasted though, because had I not got rid of the algae, they would have just been constantly blocking up and spoiling the abrasives for my random orbital sander. These high quality ceramic abrasives aren't cheap, and I would have been going through them every few minutes. The cost of that would have started to add up quite considerably. So here we can see how in some areas the previous finish has been lifted by the pressure washer and in some areas not. It's really quite patchy, but in other places it's completely intact. What we can see clearly though, especially in these patchy areas, is just how dull and lacklustre this old finish is. Compared to this area here where the underlying wood has been exposed, there really is a big difference, and this finish looks terrible. So what I'm going to do now is just assess how much timber we're going to need for the repairs, try and identify where the repairs are needed and what's the extent of them. We looked at this area before. We can see here that's gone. Look at that, it's coming up in pieces. That's gone, gone, going, gone. Problem here is the screws. They've been screwed in far too deep. They're well below the surface of the wood, and that creates a pocket in which water can settle and then spread into the timber itself. It's the same all over the deck actually, and I'm surprised it's not a lot worse than it is. I'm putting that down to this being really quite a good quality softwood. It's very dense, very heavy. It's not your run-of-the-mill decking board. So I think that's giving good resistance to this problem. But anyway, just in this small area here, I've already identified 5 or 6 places where the boards are rotten. I think it's inevitable that others will come to light. So there's another one here. That's quite bad actually. I can put my finger right into that. It's spread down there. So overall there are 7 or 8 places where I'm going to need to piece in new timber to effect a repair, and that cracked board where I could get my finger inside replace the whole thing. So I'm about finished for today. What I need to do next is to go around a couple of sawmills and timber yards and see if I can match this timber. It's not a particularly common size. It'd be good if I can match it like for like, because this is not an everyday softwood. There's a fair bit of mass to it, it's got some heft, it's quite a good quality, it's quite solid. So be good if we can find something similar. Back on the Bram Oak job today, sanding, stripping and repairing. A few days have passed since I was here to do the pressure washing. Since then all of the irises have come out of the garden. They look absolutely stunning, I have to say. So let's just have a quick review and consider what needs doing next. The next step is going to be the most difficult and time consuming stage of this job. We've got to strip off all of this old finish and sand it down to the bare wood, get it ready for sealing. Now normally when I use the pressure washer on these old film coatings, they do an excellent job of lifting the old finish, which makes the sanding quite a bit easier. In the case of this job though, that hasn't really happened. Yes, it's lifted the finish in some places, but in others it's largely intact. In fact, the majority of it is largely intact, and that's going to take a tremendous amount of sanding. I use a Mercer random orbital sander. This was recommended to me actually by an expert in decking restoration, a chap called Steve Shires, and this little combi kit, a random orbital and a detail sander for getting into the corners, £850 all told just for these 2 items, but really they make absolute light work of the job when compared to a DIY sander. If you're doing this kind of work on a regular basis, this sort of thing is a must-have. They've got a mesh back ceramic disc which allows the dust to be sucked in through the back of the pad. Sticks on there with Velcro, ready to go. So, old timers tip, get yourself a folding chair for doing railings. Day 3, sanding work progresses. It's coming along really quite nicely. Quite unusually, because this decking is of a flat timber rather than grooved, I've decided to hire a floor sander. This should allow me to really make some rapid progress now. Blimey. Vacuum bag blowout. Well, huge progress. The floor sanders made an enormous difference to the speed at which I could have got that job done. The Merker sander, the hand sander, quite capable of doing that kind of work, but it would have been a lot slower, so good decision to hire that. Even after the dust extraction malfunction. It's up my nose, it's in my eyes, it's in my ears, it's in my hair, my armpits, it's everywhere, so I need to get tidied up here and home for a shower. So today I'm going to be working on repairs. There's a few sections of decking that need swapping out. We're also going to replace this newel post on the end of the railings there. It's pretty wobbly and we've discovered it's rotten at the bottom. I've got the homeowner helping out with some sanding as well, which is a bonus. Who needs child labour when you've got a willing pensioner? Brilliant. So I've just got back from a visit to Screwfix and we've had a light rain shower whilst I've been away. It hasn't rained for weeks and weeks, and really we did need the rain. I just didn't need it today. What the rain does do, however, is give the deck a wet look, which will be an indicative colour of how this will look when it's been treated with a clear decking oil. So I managed to get the right size screwdriver bit, security bit, the SQ4, but unfortunately it's not working. It's finding the heads okay and it's engaging with them, but as soon as I try and unscrew the screws, the heads are just spinning off, they're rusted to pieces. So that leaves me with no alternative but to use plunge cuts, in other words cut straight into the deck without lifting it, and then brute force to prise out the sections that I'm going to be replacing. I don't like doing plunge cuts. It's easy to have an accident, to overshoot, nick the next board along, what have you, but I've got no alternative here. So that's worked out quite successfully. All I need now is with the grinder to come in here and cut these old screws away. I'll get the rest of the plunge cuts done first though, and then I can do the grinding all at the same time. Now we've got all of this area opened up, we've got a much better idea about what's holding this newel post in place. It's not great though. This joist has got a little bit of rot along the top, although overall it's substantially kind of solid. So what I'm going to do is chip away some of this loose wood, and then I'm going to add some wood hardener and a preservative. That should stop it getting any worse. But what I will do is screw on some of these offcuts so that we've got a good solid foundation on which to screw down these replacement decking boards. Right, we need that for measuring. Start shoring up this joist. We'll get this wood hardener on. That'll sort all of this out, stop it deteriorating any further. Right, Ronsil. Let's see what it says on the tin. Replacing rotten wood can be a tricky and expensive job. Our wet rot hardener soaks into rotten wood and sets it to make it hard again, so that you don't need to replace the wood. surely.
That's through.
Wherever I do cross cuts on these boards, I need to use wood preservative because the end grain won't be treated. Right, it's 12:30 now, got a thunderstorm due at 2 o'clock, so I'm going to work really quickly and try and get all of these repairs completed before it starts raining. Well, back on the job here in Bramhope. The weather has been appalling. We've been beset with rain for the last 3 weeks or so. It's the wettest July I can ever remember, and I just haven't been able to progress this job forward. So my plan today is to get it ready for oiling. There's still some repairs to do, a bit more sanding, and I want to put some biocide down as well, just to make sure that there's no organic growth going on. That's all the repairs completed. They turned out to be far more extensive than I originally thought. A lot of moisture penetrated through the end grain, causing the boards to be rotten from the inside out. That really wasn't apparent when first inspected. Now I'm going to move on to the last few sanding jobs. Two lots of steps to do. These have got grooved decking boards, and with that tough old sealant they're going to be difficult to sand off, especially so to get right deep into the grooves. That's where my clever brush sander comes into play. So, whilst that still looks a little patchy, the brush sander has been effective of getting all of the old coating out of the grooves. I'm now going to use the random orbital sander to even out the patchiness. So whilst I've got the orbital sander out, I'm just going to give these replaced boards the once over, key them up ready for oiling, and that will also help to even out the colour slightly as well, so that they're less patchy. So today's the day, and I'm hoping to get this deck finished off. 2 coats of Liberon decking oil over the entire surface. Surprisingly, even though the flat area is quite a big expanse, that part of the process is pretty quick. What takes the time are the railings and the spindles. To give you an idea of the timing, if I was using a brush, each section of spindle here, by the time I've done both sides and 2 coats, will take about an hour. So there's at least a day's work here just with the railings and spindles. I'm going to start with the difficult to reach areas first, working from a ladder, and then I'll work round to the inside. The product I'm going to be using today is Liberon decking oil. This is a mid-price product of good quality. Liberon decking oil needs 2 coats, but it is a wet on wet product, so you can start the second coat before the first coat has fully dried. I'm going to be using the clear finish. That's not the same as transparent, however. It does have a pigment. It's a sort of a deep yellow colour, really rich, brings out the natural colour of the wood really, really well. The second coat will go on more quickly as the surface is less absorbent, you'll need less oil. But before I start that, I'm just going to go over the whole area and just check it for drip marks, make sure there's no patchiness. If I find anything, just even it out with the brush. So back round to where we started. This area has more or less dried out now. A lot of that oil gets really soaked into the surface, and that's down to the sanding. The preparation is key with decking. The second coat builds up as a film on top of the first and will end up with a very slight sheen. It's quite attractive actually. So with all of the railings and spindles completed, it's now time for the deck. Actually, this won't take that long because I'm going to be using a big fat decking brush. First coat done, on with the second. Well, I have to say that was a really satisfying job to work on, and I'm delighted with the end result, and so is the homeowner as well. We've just been talking about it. He's over the moon actually. Not without its challenges though. We had that difficult sanding to begin with because the previous finish was so durable, and then from really the end of June, just a constant barrage of rain just coming across the Atlantic non-stop, really disrupting the job further, both with repairs and being able to get a suitable day to do the finishing. But anyway, it's all done now and I'm very pleased about that. So until next time, all the best to all of you.